Namaste, warm welcome and very good evening to our program Talk with Om. Today I have brought a new and very versatile, down-to-earth personality, and we better know that there may be different kinds of entrepreneurs and businesses. But this gentleman has been dedicating his precious time for the preservation and protection of environment, safer sanitation, and good health for all. He has recently designed a smart toilet at the World Heritage Site in Swambhu. Fortunately, this smart public toilet was selected to be the first 5 best toilets in the world by the United Nations. He has never got tired of preaching to improve the public toilets. Eventually, he has become a toiletpreneur. Now let me introduce you this gentleman, Mr. Prakesh Amatya. Namaste, Prakesh.
Namaste, Omji.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay, I've just mentioned to the audience about your really very good, wonderful design, the smart public toilet, yes? Its name is?
Aerosan.
Aerosan, yes, Aerosan. Would you tell something about Aerosan, please?
Thank you, Mr. Om. I'm very privileged to be here with you on this very popular talk program, Talk with Om.
Thank you.
And I feel very gratitude towards what you have invited for me to talk and share my experiences about this public toilet movement, I would like to say. So basically, the Aerosan hub toilet is none other than a business model which has been evolved around the experiences and the practices that we have for the past decade in the Kathmandu Valley and some exposures around the world. So this particular model is the innovation on 4 primary aspects. So number 1 is the infrastructure, and the second is the preference of the user, especially the women focused design is by the women and for the women. And the third one is the conservation aspect, so conservation of the water, conservation of the sanitation, and leading towards the economic benefit of the operators who are the lifeline of this whole business model. And this is more of kind of like a complete package, so where a user can feel safe, is user friendly, environment friendly, and moreover it generates its own revenue sources through the pay-per-use model. So the users who uses the public sanitation services like public toilet, they pay for their use, and then that revenue goes into the operation and management of the toilet. So this is a very comprehensive and sustainable model. That's why, as you have mentioned in the beginning, that this design by Aerosan, a social enterprise, is recognized by the United Nations Sustainable Technology Innovation, and recently in Stockholm in the World Water Week we have been selected among the top 5 in the Safety Sanitation Challenge.
Okay, Mr. Amatya, I really highly appreciate you for getting involved in such public welfare and sanitation, and basically public toilet is a must for women, right? They get lots of difficulties, right, while traveling different places. Everybody knows in practice, right? Okay, congratulate you again for being selected for that award, nominee, I think, right? How did you start this career as an advocate for the preservation of environment and good hygiene, safer sanitation, and are you really very much satisfied with your job and its outcomes?
Fundamentally, I don't think that this is my job. So this is beyond my job. It's more about my passion.
That's great.
So I have studied environment. I have studied, my academics is in microbiology and more into the environmental and then this conservation aspect. So I used to involve more into policy research, advocacy, and more of kind of influencing the policy makers. So having worked more than a decade in this sanitation sector, water sector, hygiene sector, environment sector, so it's been quite a kind of while that preaching and talking, and then advocating, lobbying, for the policy changes. So it's fortunate that in the South Asia, Nepal is the only country that has ensured constitutional fundamental right. Sanitation as a constitutional fundamental right, water as a constitutional fundamental right, hygiene as a constitutional fundamental right. But what next? So we have that privilege to be a constitutional right of these fundamental issues, but we don't have such right implemented on the ground. So this is the most disheartening, disappointing part. So over the time, in a past decade, policymakers, politicians, and even the users and consumers, the much kind of sensitization has been happened. So people now talk a lot about the public toilet. So it has become a talk of the town. So toilet is more kind of a subject of discussion, subject of discourse.
Yes.
But even the local election, it has become a political manifesto of many political parties. So then as a turning point in my career, I decided that now it's time to demonstrate what exactly the idea is, what exactly the smart toilet is. So even the politicians, they don't know what the smart is in real life. Right? So that's why with the generous support of my friends in Canada, so we got Grand Channels Canada Fund to implement this project as a demonstration. And further, we have been complemented with additional funding support from Stone Family Foundation, again from Canada, and other individual supporting agencies and people. So they brought in some resources, not only the funding, also the technological ideas. So that materialize, we are still improvising the design and system, what we have started in the beginning 2 years back. So this toilet has been now in use, in practice, right? So this toilet basically is designed on the concept of women and water.
Yes.
So why women and water is, as you said in the beginning, in your intro, right? Women, they think twice before leaving their home.
Yeah.
For male, also it's not that easy, but they find their own way somewhere. We can understand, right? So for the women, it's really very terrible. And it's been talked a lot, but nothing has been happened, right? So that's why the privacy is the key. So even a simple thing like locks, their purse hanger, and the space, ventilation, light, and privacy. So these things are maintained. And to operate these kind of public toilets, the major cost is the water.
I see.
So people may think that, I mean, you can see if you stand in front of Ratna Park or Potaiti, in front of these public toilets, you can see like the operator, the collector, they have been collecting lots of cash during the business hours. But if you maintain the toilet as per the standards, that revenue will not be enough to operate such a smart toilet. So that's why we focus in this water conservation. Basically, we use rainwater harvesting for the fresh water, and 80% of the used water that we recycle with the wetland system, grey water recycling system. Again, it's a nature-based system. And the feces and the urine, we don't throw it into the drain. So we collect it into our underground biodigester. So that converts this
biogas
into the biogas. And then that biogas is basically a methane gas from the human waste. We utilize it into a small cafe. So we serve tea and snacks.
I really appreciate you once again. Now, let me ask you, what is the glamour of this career, and what challenges do you have to frequently face?
Sanitation has not been so much glamorous over the centuries. So let's put it in this way.
No, I mean overall, not only the sanitations, you have been just getting engaged in all other sectors, preservations, protections of environment, and good hygiene for the needy people.
Yes, I mean this is a very important and very crucial point. So let me just want to trying to elaborate why sanitation has not been so much glamorous. Is by nature, where we defecate is always closed, it's not open.
I see.
But your face is always open.
Yeah.
Lots of cosmetics, So what everybody needs to try to do is we need to make sanitation a sexy. Once it becomes sexy, then I think probably people will find, especially your targeted audience, youth will find it glamorous.
Yeah, really.
So how to make a sanitation a sexy?
Yeah.
And not only in the terms of glamour, private investors are not so interested. Because since the time the humankind has evolved, the waste, the sanitation, whatever you say, is always a kind of like out of sight, out of mind business. So you don't want to deal with that. So once you put it aside, you think that the game is over. A kind of thinking. Yeah. So it's a matter of mindset.
Mindset, really.
So unless we change that kind of mindset, it won't be a kind of like a subject of glamour.
Nice.
So if you see health and sanitation, there are big hospitals, and the state invests lots of money in the health sector, opening the hospitals and whatnot, producing the doctors, whatnot, producing the nurses. Have we invested in sanitation school? No.
So, Mr. Amatya, as you have just mentioned, private and social sectors are not found to be that much interested in this regard, right? So, how have you been managing investment, and how will you lure you towards this mission or project?
Yeah, it's a big challenge in terms of like bringing the investment. The first challenge is the cost of land. So this sanitation especially for the public toilets, you need a prime land where people have easy access. So in the marketplaces, right, in the crossroads, so in the busy streets, so there is a big demand for the public toilets, and the price for the land is very, very expensive. So here it's been very fortunate because of the leadership of the municipalities. They have understood the value and the political mileage, I would say, that these public toilets would bring to their kind of like name and fame, and on top of that, their responsibility for the citizens to serve. So that's why the land has been availed by the municipalities, and that's for free, because the business that we are running with the public toilet is for the social service. So, and like at the moment we have been able to bring some grants to build the infrastructure. So only the infrastructure won't help to sustain this kind of like services. So what I have put in place is I have organized a cooperative of sanitation workers women's group. So they are trained and they are well organized to take up this care and business. So these public toilets are now operated and managed by the women from these caste groups, where from generations to generations they are working in the sanitation sector, and the revenue generated from the user fee. So when people come and use, so they pay certain amount of user fee. So that is primarily revolved around the operation aspect of these toilets. So this pay-per-use model has sufficiently generated the operation costs.
Okay, Mr. Amatya, I think you have been getting involved in water-related programs as well. Please let the audience know something about it.
Water is the lifeline.
Yeah.
And moreover, if you talk about Kathmandu Valley, over the centuries, nothing has been invested in the water supply distribution. So, talking about the water services, water supply in Kathmandu, the issue is again the management.
Yeah.
It's not about the quantity of the water availability. So I have been talking in lots of forums. If you just go and ask Kathmandu Upateka Khani Pani Limited, who is the sole water service providing company owned by state, if you go by book, they have hardly 250,000 customers, and in the monsoon, as per their data, their production capacity is something like 11 to 12 million liter a day.
Yeah.
If you just divide that production into each tap, you have more than 500 liter a day. Are you getting that?
No, exactly not. And this has become a real irony for all the Nepalese facing acute shortage of drinking water.
Yes.
People say, the students say, right, Nepal is the second largest or richest country for water resources after Brazil, right? But still we are facing this fundamental problem, you see.
So the water part is, we customer are the main culprit.
Yeah, really.
We never ask.
Yeah, we never demand.
Exactly. So we never ask where is the water, right? So there is a fundamental mismanagement with the water supply. So if you just go by simple calculation, there it shows there is enough water, 500 liter a day in every tap. I'm sure that you must be lucky if you get 2 buckets or 3 buckets or 5 buckets of water once in a week or once in 10 days, right? So in my house, I have a municipal supply, but I have never received single drop in the past 10 years.
I see.
So my other work is to promote the rooftop rainwater harvesting.
That's great. Yes.
So recently you have experienced overnight you receive 121.6 millimeter precipitation, right? So where did it go? It went to the river and flooded the city. If we have recharged our rooftop rainwater, I think that could be minimized, that could be mitigated. So on the water part, what I would say is like, I mean, we have, as you said, abundant resources of water. The challenge is the management.
Really.
And the investment in this century-old pipeline infrastructure, especially the distribution network, hasn't been that improved. So we have to focus on that. So if that is resolved, I think this will be much more better water supply in Kathmandu Valley. And the other thing that I would like to highlight particularly for the youths to ponder, for the youths to stress, is like especially the indigenous community living in the Kathmandu core city, is why this is not a priority for any government. They always talk about Melamchi, the mega water supply project, but why it is being postponed, why it is being delayed, why it is not much more prioritized in the valley other than the Melamchi Valley. So they are much more interested in tunneling, bringing the water sources, and now they are talking about Yangri and Larke, no?
Yeah.
About these quantities, no? Talking about the quantities.
Mr. Amatya, I don't think Melamchi is regular nowadays.
It has unfortunately stopped.
Maybe accidentally, deliberately, we don't know.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because of the natural calamities.
Calamities, yeah.
The thing has stopped. But I mean, again,
you better know that some calamities can be man-made.
So my point is like, I mean, so if we have to conserve the heritage, the tradition, no, the lifestyle of the Kathmandu Valley, I mean, the people is the big resource.
Yeah.
Because of this water, the indigenous people in the core city of the Kathmandu Valley is being migrated. So they are going out of their birthplace.
Yeah.
So then, who is
responsible?
Exactly. So the youth has to explore. They have to be sensitized, no? And they need to take a lead now on these things. So it looks like a water, but the water has a very political interest to displace the indigenous community from their birth settlements, from their habitation. So that's why these are very much to be educated, or this has to be seriously be taken into consideration.
And the water has got a big business also. It's not seen, right? It's not seen.
That's all over the world.
Yeah. Okay, Prakesh sir, let me ask you another question. You are doing really very best to promote the standard of society, the welfare of people, but for all these things you need some money. Would you face any difficulties, technical, legal difficulties, while getting grants from donor parties?
Obviously, because the area, I mean, I would like to say that, I mean, the sector of this public sanitation or public toilet is long been ignored, and it has less interest of the local government as it used to be. So, and it's a public service. It's like a public utility, like water supply, no? So, the infrastructure costs, the capex, is relatively high. That would attract the private investors. So, the private investors needs that kind of like is investment security and return on investment. So it would have been better like the public utility needs a kind of like a major reform. So major reform in a way that the investments should come from the state or the local government. It used to be, but what happened between the time is like, I mean, the management aspect was not that so strong. So you'll be surprised to know that we still don't have public toilet construction, management and operation regulation. We don't have any law. So that was the strong point that deteriorated this kind of like, I mean, utility services. So that's why there is less confidence with the local government as well, like in the investment, and the private sector is a little bit skeptical that, I mean, their investment.
Okay, let audience know one thing you were about to tell, and I told you that we will talk about it later on. That's a cup of tea, 15 rupees for every individual who uses your smart toilet over there at Swambhu. You tell me in brief.
So actually we wanted to change the whole landscape of the public toilet services in Kathmandu, in Nepal, right? So when the users come in the public toilet, they are welcome with a cup of tea, and we produce that tea from the energy recovered from their own waste, human waste. So they are welcome with a cup of tea. So that changed their mindset, and we try to kind of like influence on the behavior part of the user as well. So that's why they think like, oh, we have been offered a tea in a public toilet, no?
I see. Okay, thank you very much. The time is very much limited while talking with you. Nice talking to you. It's very, very important subject we got discourse, right? Really, I'm very much impressed by all your contributions and dedications so far for the betterment of our country, Nepal. Thank you for being with us in our program. We will see you again. Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Dear audience, thank you for being with us as usual with the same degree of interest and enthusiasm. We will see you again at the same time next week. Till then, goodbye.